50 terrified rookies are shaking in their heavy steel armor, staring down a massive, deadly labyrinth. One wrong step in this official hunter exam means death. But Hyunu is just standing in the back in a pair of cheap rubber slippers, loudly eating a bag of chips. The A-grade examiner is absolutely disgusted. He marches over and demands to know if Hyunu thinks this life-or-death exam is some kind of joke. Hyunu just yawns, looks the smug pro dead in the eye, and casually bets him $1,000,000 that he can clear the entire maze in 20 seconds. The arrogant examiner scoffs and takes the bet, ready to watch this arrogant loser get destroyed. The countdown hits 0. But Hyunu doesn't run into the maze. He walks straight up to the reinforced perimeter wall, pulls his fist back, and throws a single punch. The solid concrete instantly vaporizes, carving a massive tunnel straight through to the exit. The S-rank elite judges watching the monitors freeze in absolute terror, realizing their strongest powers are absolutely nothing compared to a guy in flip-flops casually asking for his cash. But to understand how Hyunu got this ridiculously overpowered, we have to rewind 12 years to the day the tutorial. A massive, gray-skinned titan lifts a heavy piece of building wreckage over its head while civilians scramble for their lives in total terror. It is a scene of absolute, unmitigated carnage. These people are being hunted like animals in their own streets, and the authorities are nowhere to be found. Young students sprint away in panic. A perfectly normal afternoon turns into a living nightmare as a four-eyed beast with jagged teeth lets out a deafening, world-ending roar. The peace of the modern world is officially gone forever. Survival is now the only thing that actually matters for these kids as they dodge falling debris. Bold white text fills the blackness. These monsters have appeared across the entire globe simultaneously, leaving every major city buried under thick, suffocating pillars of black smoke. Humanity has been knocked off the top of the food chain in a matter of hours. Civilization as we know it is effectively over, and there is nowhere left to hide. A red helicopter blades spin rapidly. News crews are desperately broadcasting live footage from high above the ruins while the military and government authorities watch the feed with total helplessness. The situation is spiraling out of control faster than anyone can even track. Everyone is asking how our fate will change, but the world is about to meet a legend who has been waiting 12 long years to finally step out of the shadows. A massive stone spire pierces through the white clouds. This is the tutorial tower, a jagged mystery that suddenly appeared and shattered the world's peace. It began dragging humans from all over the globe into its floors at regular intervals. It's a terrifying phenomenon that humanity has absolutely no way to defend against, leaving everyone in a state of constant, paralyzing fear. A blinding flash of blue energy explodes in the darkness. Kim is pulled into the rift, staring at his hands in total shock as his ordinary life dissolves in an instant. He's suddenly surrounded by a group of terrified people, from young children to the elderly, who are all being forced into this merciless survival game. The tower doesn't care about your age or your plans, it only cares if you're strong enough to survive the first floor. This is where the nightmare begins for most, but for Kim, it's the start of a 12-year sentence. A swirling purple portal glows with heavy runic energy. Survivors finally emerge from this gateway as superhuman hunters, possessing special abilities that make them the new hope for mankind. They've traded their normal lives for the chance to become the world's ultimate shield against the monsters. But while these new hunters celebrate their freedom, the tower continues to loom over the horizon. Kim is still trapped deep inside, and after 500 cycles, his tutorial has become something much more dangerous than anyone outside could ever imagine. Deep purple text shines against black. 12 years have passed since the first group actually cleared the tutorial tower. It's a long time for a world to change, and the monsters aren't getting any friendlier. Just look at this blue beast screaming its lungs out before getting its head handed to it. Pack of blue monsters lunge forward. A group of these things would normally wipe out a city block, but a purple flash cuts through the chaos. Out of the smoke steps a guy with pink hair and electricity dancing on his fingertips. The crowd loses it because a hunter has finally arrived to save the day. Phones aim at a smiling hunter. This isn't a war zone anymore, it's a red carpet event with cameras flashing every second. These guys aren't just soldiers, they've become full-blown idols for a desperate humanity. He's literally posing for the gram while standing on a pile of dead monsters. But how did the world become so obsessed with these guys? Bold black text on white background. The government realized pretty quickly that having superpowered humans was basically a cheat code for national security. Now, everyone is watching the news about new hunter laws, dreaming of becoming one themselves. It's a new era where your rank in the tower is the only currency that matters. But back inside the tower, Kim is still living a completely different reality. Men in suits shake hands under flashing camera lights. This handshake between the Hunter Association and the big guilds is the only news that matters right now. The media hype is so real that production crews are working overtime to capture the moment. A countdown hits 0 and the director signals for action. Thumbs go up as the host, Hae-young Lee, welcomes the entire country to another episode of Knowing the Hunter. A woman in a dark suit waves excitedly at the camera. She's the face of the biggest show in Korea, promising to reveal the secrets viewers are craving. She isn't alone either, she's got the Goguryeo Guild leader, Seo Kwan-han, sitting right there on the set. Next to him is the blue-haired Seoyoung Lee from the Urung's Guild, looking every bit the idol status hunter. This is the new celebrity culture, and these guild leaders are the A-listers. Numbers on a graphic show a massive spike in viewers. The show's popularity is honestly insane, hitting a 35% viewership rate just last week. Whether they're in a library or on a train, everyone is staring at a screen. They're obsessed with the ranking of S-level hunters and the latest tower updates. But the next segment is about to turn that obsession into pure shock. The host prepares to read a special report from her script. She's about to drop a legend that sounds too crazy to be true. Apparently, there's an advanced player who never actually left the tutorial tower. This news sends shockwaves through the audience, leaving professional hunters looking completely rattled. The big question now is, who is this ghost in the system, and what kind of monster have they become? The news anchor leans forward with a look of genuine confusion. She asks the guild leaders if this advanced player is actually real or just some viral internet myth. But honestly, the reaction she gets is chilling. These top-tier hunters don't just know him, they treat his existence like a legend. One leader explains that Kim is actually the very first hunter from 12 years ago, still trapped in the tower like a walking curse. A lone silhouette walks calmly through a massive stone gateway. While every other human is desperate to escape, Kim has spent over a decade clearing the tower repeatedly just because he can. He's ground his basic stats to the absolute limit, becoming a physical god who doesn't even need a drop of magic to dominate. It's basically like a pro gamer refusing to leave the tutorial area until every single hidden achievement is unlocked. Kim's eyes peer out from the darkness as the true scale of his power is revealed. Word from survivors is that he can blast through to the 100th floor in a single day. He's moved so far beyond the human ceiling that the tower's rules don't even seem to apply to him. But while he treats this like a hobby, others are living a nightmare. We see Lena and Han sprinting through the dark, screaming for their lives as they realize they're facing something they were never meant to survive. Hunters are sprinting past Kim in a panic. While everyone else screams that this tutorial is a death trap, Kim doesn't even flinch. He stands still as people are sent flying with a sickening crunch, followed immediately by a massive explosion that rocks the entire floor. The level of power being thrown around here is just disrespectful to anyone actually trying to survive. A striped sandal steps firmly onto the ground. Kim's red eyes narrow as the system identifies the nightmare waiting for him, the 100th floor final test monster. A massive, grinning demon with glowing eyes looms over his shoulder, laughing at the tiny human standing before it. Reaching the final boss should be a moment of triumph, but for most hunters, it's just a death sentence. The beast is revealed as Balok. It mocks Kim, asking if he's even capable of jumping above an A rank to finally escape the tower. The monster's sharp, toothy grin says it all. It honestly thinks it's the predator in this room. But what happens when the boss realizes it's trapped with someone who has cleared this floor 500 times? On the forums, hunters are debating a mysterious, advanced player who's been clearing dungeons with impossible ease lately. One B-rank hunter even claims he saw this legend in action 2 years ago when their rooms overlapped. The world is finally realizing that a total ghost has been living inside the tower this whole time. A massive werewolf gets absolutely shredded. On the 72nd floor, 5 of these elite beasts ambush Kim, but he wipes the floor with them solo like he's just taking out the trash. The hunter forums are going nuclear over this, with some veterans claiming they saw him kick a monster from the first floor straight to the 10th. It sounds like total mythomania, but when you've been trapped here for 12 years, the impossible becomes your new normal. Red impact lines slash the screen. Kim moves like a blur of violence, landing hits that feel like cannon fire against the boss's hide. A high-level Balok barely manages a pained groan before Kim's foot, wearing a casual striped sandal, no less, pins its head to the ground. The disrespect is on another level, especially since he's ending world-class threats while dressed for a casual trip to the convenience store. Kim strikes a crazy, dramatic pose. He starts laughing like a total maniac, shouting to the heavens that he's a 12 out of 10 points kind of man. Honestly, the isolation might have finally cracked his brain, but his power is undeniably terrifying. A blue system window flashes confirming the Balok's subjugation as blood sprays everywhere, proving that Kim is officially the most dangerous thing living inside these walls. A blue system window confirms the Balok is dead. The system literally credits a slipper for the final blow, which is the ultimate disrespect to a high-level floor boss. Kim just lets out a heavy sigh, looking more like a guy finishing a boring shift than a legendary warrior. He's so hilariously overpowered that a life-or-death struggle feels like a total chore. But while Kim is stuck in this endless loop, the rest of the world has been busy moving on without him. White text scrolls across a dark screen. Over the last 12 years, the time it takes for rookies to clear the tutorial tower has started to drastically plummet. Since every tower across the globe contains the exact same monsters and traps, survivors finally began documenting every single floor. We see teams of armored hunters moving in perfect sync, blasting through walls and taking down giant serpents without breaking a sweat. It's turned from a desperate struggle for survival into a calculated, professional science. A news broadcast flashes a new world record headline. Modern unions are now competing for the fastest clear times in North America and Korea, turning hunter training into a corporate race. They've even started teaching tower tactics in professional classrooms to ensure the next generation is even more efficient. Massive explosions fill the screen as these new age hunters decimate everything in their path. The world thinks it has mastered the tower, but there were only a few who realized the system was hiding a massive glitch. A sword hilt glows against fire. A trainee's face goes pale as the ground literally shakes beneath his feet. This is the moment every hunter fears, the final test of the tower. It's supposed to be an honorable challenge, but for these rookies, it's just a sudden death sentence. Glowing red eyes pierce the smoke. Meet Baylock, the owner of the tutorial tower and the guy responsible for killing over half of the people who step inside. He doesn't just fight, he harvests lives. One glare from those crimson eyes usually means your journey ends in a pool of blood. Red energy blasts across the screen. A hunter gets completely vaporized before he can even process what hit him. But honestly, the crazy part isn't the explosion, it's the pair of cheap, striped slides stepping into the frame. You don't bring house shoes to a demon fight unless you're the one in charge. A battered hunter grovels in fear. He's barely clinging to life, but Kim is just standing there surrounded by purple sparks and fading smoke. While the world treats this as a legendary feat, Kim looks totally unimpressed. He's just cleared this floor for the 1349th time, making the tower's ultimate boss look like a total joke. Kim stares forward as purple light fades. The system finishes its routine and prepares to reset the entire world around him. Honestly, at this point, victory doesn't even feel like a win anymore. It's just another tick on a clock that never stops. As his eyes flash a deep crimson, the final transition kicks in to start the nightmare all over again. Kim stands before a massive stone archway. A digital window pops up with a cheerful welcome back to the tower that feels like a total slap in the face. But the worst part isn't the reset, it's the distorted, chilling laughter echoing from the darkness. The tower overseer is clearly getting a sick kick out of watching Kim's eternal struggle, finding his endless loop absolutely hilarious. A lone figure grovels in the spotlight. While a terrified hunter screams at the ceiling to be sent back home, Kim just stands there looking completely exhausted and done with life. He doesn't offer a hand or a word of comfort because he's heard these same pathetic pleas for 12 years straight. Instead of playing hero, he focuses on the only thing that still matters and coldly demands his status window to see his progress. Kim's stats flash across a blue window. He's reached the hard cap for strength and agility, making him a literal god in a tutorial zone. It's a level of power that shouldn't exist here, but his age reveals he's been rotting in this tower for 12 long years. The scene suddenly cuts to black, shifting the clock back to where it all began. A mountain of fire and smoke crumbles. The system finally announces that the tower has been cleared, and the survivors can't believe their eyes. They're sobbing and cheering in their heavy plate armor, convinced the nightmare is finally over. It's a moment of pure joy, but looking back, it's actually the start of something much worse. A massive purple portal spirals. The hunters start making plans to meet up on the outside, desperate to turn their trauma into a lifelong bond. They step toward the light, thinking they're finally heading back to a world of peace and safety. But then, the system sends out one last cryptic command to contact everyone by any means necessary. A bright white welcome message flickers. We see a younger Kim standing there in his tracksuit, looking absolutely stunned by the notification. He asks if this is really just the first floor, and the realization hits him like a freight train. Hyunwoo Kim didn't get to leave with the others. He was forced to restart the entire tower with the next wave of victims. Blue text boxes fill the screen. Kim stares at the status window in total disbelief as the word curse flashes before his eyes. He realized far too late that he should have checked the board before the timer ran out. Now, the legendary hunter begins a desperate, years-long search for any way to break the spell binding him to this place. It is a lonely, brutal path that turns a survivor into a ghost of the tower. Kim wipes blood from his chin. He spent years clearing the tower over and over again, pushing his body past every human limit imaginable. By the 10th time through, even massive stone pillars started shattering like glass under his bare fists. He isn't just a hunter anymore. He is becoming a force of nature that the tower can't even contain. He is basically refining his strength until he becomes the ultimate weapon. A glowing doorway stands open. Kim stands before the familiar entrance yet again, but this time he isn't fighting the reality of his situation. After 5 years of failed escape attempts, he finally stops screaming and starts laughing at the absurdity of it all. He chooses resignation, deciding to find his own twisted way to enjoy this eternal prison. The man who couldn't leave decides to make this hell his own personal playground. A skull mask with purple eyes. The system presents him with a brand new quest, and for his 512th cycle, Kim decides to adopt a very specific persona. He trades his tracksuit for a crisp military uniform and a red cap, officially becoming the tower's most terrifying instructor. The newest batch of hunter trainees is about to learn that their legendary teacher has already cleared this hell 500 times, and he isn't going to go easy on them. Kim watches a group of humans celebrating near a glowing pink gate. After clearing the tower 500 times in total isolation, seeing another living person feels like a fever dream. He spent 12 years stuck in a repetitive nightmare with nothing to do but stare at his status window. Honestly, he's so used to the silence that he just collapses on the floor, waiting for the world to reset again like it always does. A blue system window suddenly displays a message about a loop being removed. Kim freezes, staring at the text as his brain tries to process that the nightmare might actually be over. He snaps into a sitting position so fast it's a miracle he doesn't pull a muscle. He looks at the screen with a mix of shock and desperation, wondering if the system is finally done playing games with his life. Kim's face splits into a wide, manic grin as he starts cackling. He lets out a victory howl that's been bottled up for over a decade while the massive stone tower begins to crack under the pressure of his excitement. He drops into a low crouch, coiling his muscles like a literal spring. With a massive explosion of light and raw power, he blasts through the ceiling, finally leaving his prison behind for the real world. Pink speed lines tear through the dark sky. Kim is actually doing it, breaking through the final barrier with enough force to shatter the atmosphere. He screams the word home at the top of his lungs, his face twisted in pure, unadulterated joy. It is the face of a man who has not seen the sun in over a decade. He finally lands on solid ground outside the tower, looking a bit roughed up in his signature black tracksuit with a massive explosion of light trailing behind him. He is finally back, and he is clearly not the same person who went in 12 years ago. White text bubbles float over a sword logo. In the modern world, the fastest anyone has ever cleared the tutorial tower is about 10 months, which everyone considers a legendary feat inside a high-end meeting room. The world's top-tier hunters are debating the mechanics of the tower, stressing how survival depends entirely on team unity and managing variables. We meet Sihyun Kim, the sole guild leader, who calmly explains that understanding your own specific attack effectiveness is the only way to stay alive. These leaders treat the tower like a calculated science, totally unaware that an anomaly just broke all their records. A guild leader speaks near a tall bookshelf. Seo Kwan-han, the leader of the Guryo Guild, chimes in to remind everyone that every 10 floors, a massive high-level boss appears to wipe out the weak. He warns that once you hit those milestones, luck completely runs out and raw skill is the only thing that matters. He is talking about monsters like the massive, one-eyed blue cyclops that guards the upper floors with bone trophies around its neck. But as the scene fades into sharp white streaks of light against a dark void, you realize Kim did not just survive those bosses. He made them look like a joke for thousands of cycles. Kim crashes down into a blinding white void. He hits the ground with enough force to send shockwaves through the entire structure. Honestly, he looks more exhausted by the sheer boredom of the climb than the actual monsters. His eyes flare with a sharp, red light as he shouts about how annoying these floors have become. A massive, fiery explosion erupts behind him, and the system screen flashes to confirm he's already cleared the 90th floor. He isn't even using a proper stance, just venting 12 years of built-up frustration. He screams for everything to just die as he wipes out the floor's elite guard in a single, messy burst of energy. Striped sandals land on the cracked stone. Kim reaches the 99th floor looking like he's just heading out to grab some groceries. It is genuinely hilarious to see him standing at the peak of the tower wearing nothing but a tracksuit and cheap slides. He finally comes face to face with a hulking, demonic entity that towers over him with glowing red eyes and rows of serrated teeth. Most people would be saying their prayers right now, but Kim is just reaching his breaking point. He screams at the top of his lungs that he is going home, and he clearly means it. A massive, blinding pillar of light consumes the entire frame as he obliterates the final obstacle standing in his way. This isn't a legendary hero's journey, it is a man who has finally had enough of the system's games. A massive explosion rocks the tower wall. The blast rips through the ancient stone, sending debris raining down on the city below. It's not just a small fire, the entire structure is shuddering under the sheer pressure of Kim's forced exit. This isn't a standard extraction handled by the system, it's a man literally breaking his way back into reality. High-rise offices overlook the chaotic scene. We shift to the Korean Hunter Association's observation office where employees are frozen at their desks. A violent, swirling purple portal begins to tear open right in their hallway, crackling with a terrifying amount of energy. The staff looks absolutely panicked because a gate opening in the middle of a management district is basically a death sentence. A man in a suit shouts orders. The purple-haired supervisor yells into his phone to get the list of survivors ready because the impossible is happening right now. Out of the blinding white light at the center of the portal, a lone silhouette finally steps onto the solid ground. Everyone is holding their breath to see which legendary high-ranker just survived the tower's final floor. A black tracksuit zipper comes into view. Kim stands in the middle of the modern city, staring up at the glass skyscrapers with a completely dazed expression. He lets out a soft, almost manic laugh as the realization of being home finally starts to sink in. 12 years of hell are over, but for the association, the real nightmare is just walking through their front door. A staff member approaches the tracksuit guy. He shouts out a massive congratulations, telling Kim he did a great job finally clearing the tutorial. Kim just turns around with a blank look and speaks totally informally, which immediately rubs the official the wrong way. The guy is taken aback by the lack of respect but pivots to ask for Kim's name to log him into the system. It's the ultimate irony because this bureaucrat thinks he's dealing with a rude rookie instead of a physical god. Kim lets out a little chuckle. He doesn't look like a typical hero, but the moment he confirms his identity, the entire vibe shifts. The staff member looks down at his records and sees the original list from the very first tutorial group 12 years ago. There it is, Manhwa Kim, a name that was basically a ghost in the machine for over a decade. He looks back up, sweating, and asks if he's really that same person from the beginning. It is a total system shock for the Hunter Association. Pure disbelief washes over the face. He can only mutter about how insane this situation is while staring at a living legend. Meanwhile, Kim is over the moon, throwing his arms up in a massive victory pose under the bright sun. He isn't thinking about the records or the fame. He's just genuinely happy the endless grind is finally over. After 500 cycles and 12 years of isolation, the advanced player has officially left the building. A bustling city square fills with people. A full week has passed since Kim finally escaped his 12-year loop, and the world is already buzzing. A reporter on site explains that the tutorial center is hosting the first grade evaluation for the famous 18th group. This squad didn't just clear the tower, they shattered the world record by 2 whole weeks. Naturally, rumors are flying that the mysterious advanced player is hiding somewhere in the crowd. People are desperate to see if the legend is actually real. High-heeled shoes click against the floor. Inside the association, a group of hunters discusses Kim's return with a mix of awe and skepticism. A girl with long blue hair points out that inside the tower, basic human needs like sleep and hunger just disappear, and your body stops aging entirely. She's certain Kim won't have changed a bit since he left. Her teammate is way more focused on his combat stats, wondering just how much of a monster he's evolved into. It makes you wonder if anyone is actually ready for what he's about to do next. Armored rookies wait in a dim room. An announcement blasts over the speakers telling everyone to put on their protective gear for the upcoming test. But Kim is just sitting there in his striped tracksuit, looking like he's waiting for a bus while he aggressively eats a bag of chips. He finishes the whole bag and lets out a massive burp, completely unfazed by the rookies staring at him in total disbelief. Everyone else is geared up for the fight of their lives, while Kim is just worried about his next snack. Kim stares at a group of rookies in red helmets and body armor. He genuinely asks where they got all that gear, only for the trainees to look at him like he's already a ghost. They tell him the equipment was handed out this morning and warn him that failing this grade evaluation without protection is basically a death sentence. While Kim scratches his head wondering if he missed a memo, a loud announcement orders the group to leave the waiting room. It's finally time for the soon-to-be hunters to head to the testing site, and while the rookies grip their weapons with trembling hands, Kim just looks like he wants to go back to sleep. A massive concrete facility looms under a gray sky, labeled as the Seoul Tutorial Center Grade Evaluation Maze. This is where the real meat of the trial happens, and the atmosphere is thick with tension as the trainees gather before a set of giant metal gates. Waiting for them is an imposing man in a sharp black suit and sunglasses who looks like he's never smiled a day in his life. He welcomes the junior hunters with a cold professional tone and announces that the evaluation has officially begun. The energy in the crowd is a mix of pure hype and absolute terror, as some rookies jump with excitement while others realize there's no turning back now. David stands tall in his suit, his arms crossed as he overlooks the nervous crowd. He introduces himself as an A-grade hunter and the official supervisor for this exam, which immediately shuts everyone up. He drops a heavy truth on them, noting that the entire world is currently watching this broadcast, putting the weight of global expectation on their shoulders. You can see the sweat beads rolling down the rookies' faces as the pressure of being on camera hits them. But Kim is still just standing there in his cheap tracksuit, completely unfazed by the global audience or the A-grade hunter staring them down. Smirking man in a black suit. The examiner tells the group not to get nervous, but his condescending grin makes it clear he expects most of them to fail. While the rookies are practically shaking in their boots, Kim stands there with a look of pure, unadulterated boredom. He's spent 12 years fighting literal gods, so a corporate speech isn't exactly rattling him. You have to wonder if anything in this entire facility can actually pose a threat to a guy who treats the apocalypse like a Tuesday. Clicking a black digital remote, the examiner hits the start button, and the floor begins to rumble under their feet with a heavy mechanical groan. The armored trainees look up toward the ceiling as the reality of the evaluation finally starts to sink in. They're not just here for a grade anymore, they're here to fight for their lives. It's the kind of high-stakes tension that would break a normal person, but Kim hasn't even adjusted his tracksuit. Massive metal doors sliding apart. A giant mechanical labyrinth is revealed behind the examiner, looking like a graveyard of industrial steel and shifting shadows. He warns them that the maze is crawling with lethal hidden traps and expects them to utilize every ounce of their power just to make it through. It's meant to be an impossible challenge for any rookie, yet Kim just stares at the entrance like he's waiting for a late bus. The examiner thinks he's teaching them a lesson in fear, but he has no idea the real monster is already standing in the back of the room. A digital timer glows bright blue. The countdown for the trial hits the 30-second mark, and the atmosphere in the room instantly turns heavy. While the rookies in their red armor tighten their grip on their swords, looking like they're about to face a war zone, Kim is just standing there like he's waiting for a coffee. Most of these guys are visibly shaking in their boots, trying their best to look disciplined for the proctors. It's honestly kind of pathetic seeing them spend thousands on premium gear for a test that Kim could probably clear in his sleep. Someone grips their sword hilt tight. The clock ticks down from 4 seconds to 0, and the gates finally blast open with a mechanical roar. As the start of the exam signal flashes, the armored rookies charge forward with every ounce of energy they have. They're treating this like a desperate life-or-death struggle, pushing and shoving to get a head start into the dangerous maze. They think speed and formation are their only hopes of surviving the traps, but they're about to realize that raw, overwhelming power changes the rules of the game entirely. The examiner smirks behind his sunglasses. He's feeling pretty smug, commenting on how disciplined and good the new recruits look today. But then, Kim casually taps him on the shoulder and calls him uncle, completely shattering his cool facade. The examiner spins around, visibly shocked that this tracksuit-wearing kid is still standing right next to him instead of running into the maze with the others. Kim just stares at him with total boredom and asks if the only goal is to reach the exit, somehow. If the examiner knew what Kim actually meant by somehow, he'd probably be the one screaming for help. The examiner glares through his dark sunglasses. He's looking down at Kim's striped sandals and cheap tracksuit, thinking this guy looks absolutely pathetic for a hunter. To a high-ranking proctor, this casual outfit is basically a middle finger to the entire association. He can't believe a newcomer has the nerve to show up for a deadly trial looking like he's headed to a convenience store. Kim looks up with bored eyes. As the proctor starts his typical lecture about respect and attitude, Kim shuts him down with a look of pure exhaustion. He tells the man to go act tough in front of the noisy fellows who are actually sweating over this test. Kim isn't just being rude, he's treating the proctor like an annoying fly that's interrupting his day. A dark red aura surrounds them. The examiner towers over Kim, officially labeling him as a top-tier arrogant brat who needs a reality check. Instead of flinching, Kim breaks out a cocky grin and proposes a high-stakes bet. He claims he can clear the entire maze in under 20 seconds and asks for a cash prize if he pulls it off. Most people are praying to survive, and Kim is just trying to monetize his boredom. The dark maze entrance looms ahead. The proctor tells him to stop talking nonsense, but Kim just laughs and asks if the guy is actually chicken. To really settle the matter, he ups the ante to a full $1,000,000 while wearing a smug, closed-eye smile. He knows he's already won, and watching the examiner's blood pressure spike is just an added bonus for the advanced player. Kim walks away in striped sandals. The examiner screams for him to not change his mind, but Kim is already looking at the massive, fog-shrouded wall ahead. He realizes that between his daily pay and the overtime bonus, he's looking at a massive $10,000,000 payday. This changes the vibe completely. He isn't just taking a test anymore, he's essentially clocking in for a high-paying shift, and he's not about to let the standard procedure slow down his earnings. Kim stands before the dark wall. He places a hand on the cold surface, reflecting on what being a hunter actually means in this new era. His gaze turns ice cold as he locks onto a structural weakness. Without a hint of effort, he unleashes a strike so violent the entire screen vibrates from the impact. Most rookies would be looking for the key or the door, but Kim decided he's just going to delete the obstacle entirely. The examiner lowers his dark sunglasses. He looks genuinely baffled, muttering about what this absolute lunatic thinks he's trying to achieve. Behind him, the armored rookies are whispering in total confusion, wondering why this big brother is picking a fight with a literal wall. Kim just lets out a soft hum, completely unbothered by the audience. A second explosion of dust and debris follows as the reinforced structure begins to fail. He's proving that when a path doesn't exist, he simply forces one into reality. A pale hand presses against the wall. Kim doesn't bother with a weapon or a fancy chant, he just channels raw energy directly through his palm. A massive pillar of blue light erupts instantly, tearing through the reinforced structure like it's made of cardboard. It's a terrifying display of power that makes the rookie's standard gear look like plastic toys. The crazy part is how the chamber starts to buckle under the sheer weight of his presence alone. The system was never built to hold a guy who spent 12 years soloing the hardest floor in existence. Kim raises one hand toward the ceiling. He looks completely relaxed even as a blinding flash of white light consumes the entire room. This isn't just a breach, it's a total structural delete as the ceiling is blasted into nothingness. The sound is probably deafening, but Kim stands there like he's just waiting for a light to change. Giant slabs of rock are sent flying through the air like scraps of paper. He isn't just passing this evaluation, he's proving that their metrics are completely useless against a man of his caliber. Thick clouds of gray smoke billow. The white light finally fades, revealing a jagged, gaping hole where the solid barrier used to stand. Through the haze, we see Kim standing perfectly still, hands buried in his pockets without a single speck of dust on his tracksuit. He's just staring out at the opening he carved into the facility. It's a forcibly made exit, but for Kim, it's the only logical way to leave when the front door is too slow. The association is about to realize they didn't just find a new hunter, they found a god in a tracksuit. People stare at a giant monitor. Everyone is losing their minds because Manhwa Kim just punched a straight line through the evaluation maze. He didn't just clear the test, he completely broke the facility's logic. Now, the association staff is scrambling, wondering if measuring his grade is even possible. They're looking at his history, asking if he was always this stubborn and destructive. Honestly, the guy is a walking safety hazard for their property insurance. A blonde guy smiles amidst smoke. While the observers panic over Kim, this blonde rookie is just humming about $1,000,001 prize. He's clearly elite, but he's actually trying to follow the rules for once. That changes the second he sees the aftermath, leaving him staring in total disbelief. A massive boom echoes through the hall as the smoke thickens, forcing everyone to realize the 18th group is a total anomaly. This isn't an evaluation anymore, it's a global news event. Thick smoke rises from the rubble. Kim stands over the wreckage of the maze, genuinely hoping the association doesn't send him a bill for the property damage. Considering he just nuked the testing facility with his bare hands, he's lucky they aren't calling the cops. David glares through his dark sunglasses. The examiner looks like he's about to snap, dropping some bizarre meta threats about joining a Discord server. Kim just smirks back with total confidence, proving he's just as hard to rattle as he is to beat. He's already making enemies, and he hasn't even finished the first day. The camera pans across a city building. Over at the official Live Hunter headquarters, the staff has already finalized the new contestant list. They're looking for a star to boost their ratings, but they have no idea what's coming. Can they actually handle the absolute chaos Kim is about to drop on the world stage? Two staff members talk in an office. The association is scrambling to dig up dirt on Kim, but the guy is basically a ghost. Since they can't track his history, they need a new star to keep the broadcast ratings from tanking. The technician pulls up a file on the only other rookie worth a damn. A profile image shows a blonde man. Meet Lee Kang-hyun, a traditional martial arts specialist who's the polar opposite of Kim's brute force style. He's the association's official backup plan in case their advanced player ends up being a total liability. He looks like the perfect, disciplined poster boy they've been praying for. A hand grips a glowing purple blade. Kang-hyun unsheaths his katana with terrifying precision, looking every bit like the elite prodigy he's hyped up to be. He isn't here to smash walls, he's here to show the world that refined technique still reigns supreme. The real question is, will his training hold up when things get bloody? Kang-hyun raises his glowing blade. He is fully convinced his talent makes luck a total non-factor in this maze. Suddenly, a massive, tusked monster looms over the group, causing the other recruits to absolutely lose their minds. They are screaming at everyone to run for their lives, but Kang-hyun does not move an inch. He is not scared, he is just calculating his first move. A sharp eye narrows in focus. He waits for the perfect window while the beast's purple, tooth-filled maw snaps toward his head. Most rookies would freeze solid right here, but he is just looking for the kill shot. The monster thinks it has found an easy snack, but it has actually just walked into a human blender. Purple light flashes through the dark. Kang-hyun carves through the beast with clinical efficiency, leaving nothing but massive, butchered chunks of meat behind. He stands over the carcass, fully expecting the world to bow down to his genius. This is Lee Kang-hyun, and he is finally ready for his spotlight. But is he prepared for the sheer chaos Kim is about to unleash on the leaderboard? Lee Kang-hyun smiles with his eyes closed. He spent his whole life soaking up respect and walking a path paved with easy success. To him, this evaluation is just another stage to prove he's the main character. But confidence is a liability when you don't realize the level of the game has shifted. Intense red energy blasts through stone. Kim isn't just navigating the maze, he's systematically deconstructing the entire facility with every single punch. Massive concrete walls are coming down like wet cardboard, leaving the association's budget in absolute ruins. Honestly, it's not even an evaluation anymore, it's a full-scale demolition. A candidate in red screams in terror. This guy has officially reached his limit, shrieking about going home while sprinting away from the chaos at top speed. It's a brutal reality check for the rookies who thought hunting was all glory and no gore. If Kim keeps this up, there won't be an evaluation center left for anyone else to clear. A sweating man stares up in total shock. The blonde rookie was doing just fine until he crossed paths with Kim, the absolute madman who just redefined what a hunter can do. Watching Kim casually step through that portal of destruction left him questioning his entire life. But even with the chaos, the first exam is officially called a success. It's honestly a miracle anyone survived the dust, let alone the trauma of seeing Kim's raw power. Candidates stand before a massive shattered wall. The association is in full damage control mode, ordering everyone back to the waiting room while they scramble to explain why their facility is in pieces. They're calling it a safety check, but everyone knows they're just panicking. Meanwhile, the media room is in a total frenzy, with reporters screaming for any footage that caught the action. Kim didn't just pass the test, he broke the internet before the results were even posted. A pink-haired reporter screams for footage. The media room is losing its mind because they can't get a clear shot of the guy in flip-flops. Honestly, it's hilarious watching them panic while Kim's face is plastered all over the massive association monitors. The lead analyst just stares at the screen, demanding a full report on the situation. The legend is back, and the world clearly isn't ready for the fallout. A sign reads waiting room. Inside, the atmosphere is incredibly tense. We see that blonde rookie again, and the guy looks absolutely drained after his run. He's one of the few who actually finished the test the elite way, but even he looks shaken by what happened. But if the normal genius is this stressed, where is the man who actually caused the chaos? Kim is passed out on a couch. This absolute madman is literally snoring while the other rookies stare in total shock. They're whispering about the explosion and how he carved a path through the maze like the walls were made of paper. The title, Advanced Player, is already spreading through the room like wildfire. Kim isn't just a hunter, he's a glitch in their entire reality. Rookies in red armor huddle together. They're whispering about the advanced player rumors while the blonde rookie just fumes. He locks his gaze on the scoreboard, clearly taking Kim's performance as a personal insult. Everyone else is scared, but this guy is looking for a fight. An announcement echoes through the hall. The association delays the next round by 15 minutes to fix the structural damage Kim caused. Kim just sits there looking bored while the world around him loses its mind. Honestly, it's hilarious how little he cares about the chaos he just unleashed. But how much longer can the staff keep a lid on this? A close-up shows a determined eye. The blonde rookie swears he won't lose to that damn man before storming into a purple-lit arena. He draws his weapon just as a scream rips through the facility. Kim might have started the fire, but this rookie is ready to burn the whole place down. A young man screams with purple light. The blonde rookie lets out a guttural roar as his katana sparks with violent, surging energy. He's not just trying to finish the maze, he's trying to reclaim the spotlight Kim stole by force. Honestly, the level of mana he's pushing into that blade is enough to make any pro hunter nervous. But will this flashy display be enough to overshadow a man who punches through reinforced walls? Purple lightning strikes in a dark room. The blonde rookie erupts in a massive blast of electrical energy that completely clears his path in one blinding flash. Up in the media booth, the producers are literally screaming into their headsets, losing their minds over the footage. They can't believe a rookie fresh out of the tower is already wielding this kind of high-level magic power. Kim's path was a disaster for the facility, but this is the kind of sensational news that's going to set the world on fire. Staff members stare at glowing screens. A genius has officially arrived as purple lightning crackles across the monitoring station. It's rare to see the association analysts this genuinely rattled by a rookie's raw talent. Lee Kong-hyun moves in a blur. He's a whirlwind of purple energy, landing surgical strikes on every monster that crosses his path. This isn't just basic competence. The guy is a legitimate combat prodigy. Digital timer flashes at 0. Lee Kong-hyun stands over 78 dead goblins, securing the highest score of the day. He lets out a relieved breath while the staff notes he's completely uninjured. He has no idea he's just become their next big thing. A screen displays the blonde rookie's victory. While the staff gushes over the kid's talent, they quickly pivot to the main event. Registration number 34, Kim Hyun-woo. Kim honestly looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, yawning as if this world-class evaluation is just a boring nap break. Behind him, the blonde rookie's expression hardens into a glare. He's clearly not a fan of Kim's unbothered attitude. Association staff watch the monitors with bated breath. The proctor announces the next target is a goblin, and Kim's turn is finally up. Blue light surges around Kim as the 120-second timer prepares to tick down. He stands there totally relaxed while the room practically vibrates with anticipation. Now the real question is, will he play by the rules or break the system again? Everything goes dark as the gate opens. Back in the monitoring room, the association staff is reeling from the absolute chaos Kim just caused. While the technician is already calculating the massive repair costs for those destroyed walls, the lead analyst identifies a second high potential target. A blonde rookie in red armor has successfully navigated the maze with elite-level skill, proving he's the real deal without breaking any rules. This 18th group is officially shattering every record in the book. In the media booth, reporters are in a frenzy, shouting about the sensational news as the results go global. The blonde rookie stands at the finish line looking totally satisfied, while David prepares to deal with the fallout of Kim's insane power. The evaluation is over, but the association's headache is only beginning. Kim didn't just pass the test, he completely broke the game, and now everyone knows his name. The tutorial system initializes the monster spawn and begins a heavy 10-second countdown. Kim remains perfectly still while massive, muscular beasts materialize out of the light to circle him like prey. It's an intimidating sight for anyone else, but for a guy who's been stuck in a tower for 12 years, this is basically just a warm-up. Elite guild leaders watch the monitors. Seo Kwan-han stands alongside Soyoung Lee and Sihyun Kim, their expressions unreadable as they track the countdown hitting the 5-second mark. Down in the arena, Kim is completely surrounded by monsters twice his size, making him look like he's about to be torn apart. The tension in the observation room is thick, but Kim hasn't even bothered to take his hands out of his tracksuit pockets. Kim's sharp eyes lock onto his target. The timer finally reaches 1 and the monsters lose their patience, lunging forward with intent to kill. A massive fist descends from the air, aimed directly at Kim's face with enough force to shatter the floor. This is the official start of the test, and everyone is holding their breath to see if the legend is actually real. A black and white slide kicks off. Kim doesn't just dodge the attack. he accelerates with such violent speed that he turns into a blue blur of pure motion. Up in the monitoring room, the association staff start screaming in total panic as their high-end sensors go haywire. One of the technicians is frantically shouting into his phone, asking if anyone saw that and begging for a closer look, but Kim has already moved faster than the cameras can process. He's effectively broken the tracking software, leaving the world's top hunters staring at a glitching screen in absolute shock. A snarling beast's wide-open mouth. While the monsters roar in a blind rage, Kim is already 3 steps ahead of their next move. He strikes with such fluid precision that the association staff are left sweating bullets in the control room. They look at the timer and realize they've completely lost sight of him on the main feed. It's a total blackout for the sensors. How does a supposed rookie move like a literal glitch in reality? Crowd members looking at a screen. People in the stands are starting to whisper, terrified that this guy is some kind of monster in human skin. Meanwhile, the top-tier guild leaders, Seo Kwan, Sooyoung, and Sihyun, are watching with a specialized intensity that the public just can't match. They recognize that legendary movement because it's a style they haven't seen in over a decade. Kim is just bouncing from one kill to the next, making the world's most dangerous trial look like a light morning jog. Red-tinted screen with large Korean text. To the monsters inside the arena, it's like time itself has frozen because Kim is operating at a speed they can't physically process. The world-famous hunters in the observation room are left questioning every law of physics they've ever learned. Kim just flashes a confident, knowing smirk as he carves through the chaos. Honestly, if he's this strong after being gone for years, what was he like when he was in his prime? Blue energy trails behind Kim's body. The rumors of a god-tier returnee are suddenly becoming a terrifying reality for everyone watching. As the timer ticks down to the absolute final second, the energy in the room reaches a boiling point. The digital clock hits 0, signaling the end of the fastest slaughter in history. The test is over, but the real mystery is just starting. How will the world react to a man who's already outgrown it? Kim hangs in the air mid-motion as the final monster count tallies up across the holographic interface. He officially clocks in at a staggering 248 points, a number that shouldn't even be possible for a single hunter in this short time frame. This isn't just a successful evaluation, it's a terrifying statement to the entire association. Kim lands softly with a confident smirk, looking like he barely even warmed up while the staff members are left speechless. A smartphone screen displays a viral video of Kim's fight already racking up millions of views in real time. The digital world is currently melting down over this advanced hunter, who just redefined the meaning of combat speed. Every comments section is a total war zone, with people obsessing over his magic power and how a newcomer could move that fast. It's a total media eclipse, and Kim is the only thing anyone is talking about on the web right now. A pair of sharp blue eyes narrows as hands begin to tremble violently while clutching a high-end smartphone. Seo Kwan Han is watching the broadcast from his office, and his grip is so intense the screen actually shatters into a web of cracks. He's not just shocked, he's deeply insulted by how easily Kim is reclaiming his status as the absolute strongest. He loses his cool completely, launching a kick that slams a heavy door into the wall with a deafening bang. A heavy fist slams into the stone wall, leaving a massive crater where the reinforced concrete used to be. Seo Kwan is spiraling, realizing that while he was playing politics, Kim was becoming a literal god of the tower for 12 long years. He throws his head back and screams at the ceiling in a fit of jealous rage, calling Kim a lucky bastard for stealing the spotlight. But the scene shifts to a quiet desk where Sooyoung Lee reaches out to finalize Kim's official return to society. Alice sits across from Kim on the sofa. She slides her business card over while dropping a bombshell. Everyone who is anyone is currently desperate for a meeting with him. The world he knew is gone, replaced by a brutal cycle of dungeon raids and monster outbreaks that have changed society's entire foundation. Alice is laying it all out, basically telling Kim that his old life is dead and he is now the most valuable asset on the planet. Kim looks down at the white documents. While Alice talks about high-level politics, Kim is honestly just wondering where he can find a decent meal. He looks a little dazed when she calls his name, trying to wrap his head around how the association handles transferring contracts to hunters. Alice finds his reaction charming and calls him smart, but then she admits she didn't just come here to deliver news, she has a secret second purpose for this visit. Kim flips through the thick contract pages. Alice guides him toward the back of the membership rights document where the real numbers are hiding. His eyes practically glow as the reality hits. The payout mentioned is in the thousands of millions. It is a life-changing amount of money for a guy who has been stuck in a tower for over a decade. Alice keeps her poker face, waiting to see if the legendary returnee will take the bait. Kim grips the papers with both hands. He stares at the figure, 10 billion won, guaranteed as a lump sum just for signing his name on the dotted line. It is a staggering amount that would let him live that quiet, free life he has been dreaming about since his release. Alice leans in, asking if the weight of 10 billion is enough to buy his loyalty. Kim hesitates, looking up to ask if there is a massive string attached to this much cash. Kim holds the thick contract papers while sitting on a couch. He's staring at the numbers, asking if the currency crashed while he was away because 10 billion won feels like a massive joke. Sooyoung Lee just taps on her phone, casually mentioning that inflation and land prices have gone through the roof since the gates appeared. When she mentions his old rundown place is now worth 300 million won, Kim nearly chokes on his own air. It's a brutal reality check for a guy who's been stuck in a tower for over a decade. The scene transitions with a sharp title card splash. Kim is visibly sweating now, realizing his old world savings won't even buy a studio apartment in this new economy. Soo-young Lee sees him panicking and hits him with a curveball about the Aries Guild. She leans in with a calm, professional smile, explaining that her guild isn't the only one desperate for his signature. The pressure is mounting, but she has a way to make all his financial worries disappear in an instant. Kim holds a black folder while Soo-young gestures. She ups the ante, asking what he'd think if they just doubled the offer to 20 billion won. Kim looks stunned, but there's always a catch when money this big is being thrown around. She explains the distribution ratio for spoils would be heavily in his favor to sweeten the deal. It sounds like a dream, but in this world, nobody hands out 20 billion without expecting a miracle in return. Kim flashes a knowing, subtle smirk. He reveals that a scouter from the Aries Guild actually reached out to him personally because of his old connections. Even with the massive payday dangling in front of him, he remains incredibly sharp. He notes that scouters aren't even supposed to recommend contracts while they're inside the association headquarters. It's a shady move that tells Kim he's officially the most wanted man in the city, and everyone is breaking the rules just to get a piece of him. The scout leans forward with a polite smile. She tells Kim there's no rush to decide, acting like she's doing him a favor by giving him space. But Kim isn't hesitating. He casually slides the Aries contract right back across the table. The woman's eyes go wide with shock as she realizes he's already made up his mind. He makes it crystal clear that he has no intention of joining their guild or any other group trying to buy his loyalty. It's a total rejection of the celebrity life most hunters would kill for. Kim's lips curl into a sharp, knowing smirk. He knows exactly how this world works. It's all a game of give and take. If he takes their massive paycheck, he's giving up his soul to follow their corporate schedule. To these elite guilds, he's just a prize to be won and marketed to the public. But Kim has spent 12 long years being trapped in a hellhole. He isn't about to walk into another cage just because it's decorated with gold and a fancy title. Kim sprawls out on a messy bed surrounded by open snack bags. He's finally back in his own personal sanctuary, far away from the cameras and the desperate scouters. He knows that once you take that first step into their world, the annoying, unwanted work starts piling up. Kim absolutely hates that kind of baggage and isn't looking for a career. He's officially decided to live a life that's strictly comfortable and carefree. He's going to do exactly what he wants, when he wants, without ever answering to a boss again. As he closes his eyes to enjoy the first real sleep he's had in ages, the screen fades to black on his own terms. Kim stands by the exit door. He isn't interested in the standard path of a hero. Soo-young is visibly shaken, trying to explain that top-tier hunters are supposed to be built through the guild system. She can't believe he's just walking away from all that power and influence. Kim doesn't flinch, his expression remaining perfectly calm as he heads for the door. He's played this game long enough to know what he wants. He tosses out a final offer, telling her to use his business card if she ever changes her mind. It's a complete power move that leaves the elite guild leader totally speechless. A dark gradient fills the screen. Kim is finally back in his own space, collapsing onto a bed surrounded by bags of snacks. He's exhausted from the bureaucracy, muttering that the whole ordeal was just a massive shame. After 12 years of constant life-or-death struggle, this modern world is already giving him a headache. He thinks back to that grading test and how much of a total waste of time it actually was. Why jump through hoops for people who can't even track his movement speed? The transition to peace is the only thing he actually cares about. Kim lies on a white pillow. Right next to him sits a document titled List of People Who Want to Meet Hyunwoo Kim. It's basically a directory of the most powerful people on the planet, but Kim just squeezes his eyes shut in annoyance. Their desperate efforts to recruit him are completely in vain because he has zero interest in being a corporate soldier. He wonders why he'd ever bother joining a guild when he could just be free. The screen fades to total white as he chooses solitude over fame. A wooden Japanese restaurant sits quietly. Kim stands inside the private room, staring at the three people across from him like he's seen a ghost. It turns out the legendary guild leaders, Seo Kwan-han, Soo-young Lee, and Si-hyun Kim, aren't just idols, they're his old squad mates from 12 years ago. He's struggling to reconcile their godlike reputations with the kids he used to protect. It's a bizarre reunion that the public would never believe. Seo Kwan flashes a rugged, mature smile. Kim remembers him as a guy his own age, but now, the guild leader looks like a full-blown uncle. Then there's Soo-young, who used to be a scrawny junior high student with a massive temper. Seeing her now as a powerful woman with flowing blue hair is a massive reality check for Kim. He spent 12 years frozen in time while his friends became the world's elite. A massive spread of sushi sits between them. Kim doesn't waste any time with pleasantries and starts roasting Soo-young for how much of a crybaby she used to be. He reminds her of the time she hid behind him during the 50th floor boss fight, and even brings up the embarrassing moment she peed herself on the 14th floor. Her eyes glow with a murderous, purple aura as she tells him to shut up. This is exactly the kind of chaos Kim missed. Kim stuffs his face with delicious sushi. He's totally unfazed by their status, treating the world's most dangerous hunters like annoying siblings. Si-hyun Kim joins in on the nostalgia, laughing as he brings up the time they teamed up to catch a giant merman. It's a rare moment of peace for Kim, but as they reminisce about their survival, the weight of his missing skills still looms over his future. A giant merman tail gets sliced. Soo-young laughs, reminding Seo-kwan about the time he borrowed a sword just to make fresh sashimi in the middle of a raid. It sounds like a total bloodbath, but these guys talk about it like it was just a high school field trip. Kim just watches them, realizing his old squad has definitely grown up into some eccentric powerhouses while he was stuck in the tower. The elite hunters share a laugh. Soo-young leans over the table and casually mentions that Kim is basically a celebrity now. Kim stops mid-bite, his face going completely blank as the weight of that word sinks in. He was aiming for a quiet life of total freedom, but apparently, the tutorial cameras made sure every single person in Korea knows his face and his power. Kim's eyes go wide with fear. His expression shifts from confusion to pure, unadulterated horror as Soo-young explains his concepts were actually broadcast on national TV. He starts physically shaking, his skin turning pale as he realizes his most private, desperate survival moments are now public entertainment. Imagine surviving for 12 years just to have your most embarrassing secrets aired on the evening news for everyone to judge. A man clears a dungeon naked. Kim's mind immediately jumps to the absolute worst-case scenarios, like the time he had to clear a floor without any clothes on. But the real kicker is the Gollum incident where he spent hours crawling around a cave like a freak just to sneak past monsters. If that footage actually leaked, his reputation as a legendary player isn't just over, it's buried under a mountain of internet memes. Kim stands before a purple aura. Word is spreading that he literally kicked his way through the first 10 floors of the tower without breaking a single sweat. Sihyun leans in, eyes wide, desperate to know if the legends about Kim's impossible climb are actually based on reality. When you're this famous, even your warm-up routine starts sounding like creepy recruitment ads for a cult. Kim busts moves under disco lights. Apparently, he was so bored during a raid that he decided to clear a boss room while perfecting his choreography. Soo-young and Sihyun sit across from him in total silence, looking like they've just witnessed a glitch in the Matrix. It's honestly hard to maintain your dignity as a world-class guild leader when your senior is this much of a wild card. Kim chews on a large sushi. He casually explains that he was just experimenting with the tower's mechanics because he was feeling a little bit restless. The group sits around the dinner table while the gravity of his words sinks in, turning a simple meal into an interrogation. He was legitimately worried that if he didn't pull those stunts, he'd be stuck in that void for another decade. Kim gestures with his wooden chopsticks. He reveals that after piercing the 10th floor, he just gave up on the path and jumped his way to the top. Hearing the truth makes the guild leaders realize the grading test wasn't even a fraction of what this monster can do. Kim just gives them a deadpan stare, telling them they should try getting trapped themselves if they think it's so easy. The purple title logo flashes briefly. Kim keeps his cool while Soo-young looks like she's seen a ghost, struggling to process that he was once just a lowly student. The vibe shifts as we're pulled into a flashback of the tower's desolate, ruined landscape under a pitch-black sky. This is the grim reality Kim faced for 12 years while the rest of the world moved on. Seeing those jagged stones and dark clouds makes his current casual attitude in the restaurant feel even more legendary. A hooded man cringes on the ground. Kim describes himself as the one guy who couldn't keep up, a wandering soul left to rot in the dark corners of the tutorial. Suddenly, a massive, caped figure with a skull mask appears, looking like the king of a nightmare realm. This entity asks the weakling if he truly wants to live, looming over him with an aura of pure power. It's clear Kim didn't just train for a decade. He was remade by something completely inhuman that chose to guide him out of the abyss. Kim gives a small, nostalgic smile. He jokes that he spent his time bragging about creating a new martial arts style, basically acting like a protagonist in some fantasy manhwa. Seo-kwan watches him closely, trying to bridge the gap between his old friend and the overpowered monster sitting here now. Kim finishes by saying he simply saw a chance to leave and finally took it. The table relaxes into light-hearted laughter, even though the sheer weight of his 12-year sentence is still impossible for the others to fully ignore. Kim struggles with a heavy training weight during a flashback. Back in the tutorial, his master was constantly screaming at him to focus his chakra and pull energy from his abdomen. Honestly, looking back, Kim realizes the whole thing was kind of a scam since all he really did was punch things with brute force. He even worries that the old guy might try to sue him if they ever cross paths again. It's a hilarious thought considering how much Kim eventually outgrew those basic lessons. Kim sits with the 3 top guild leaders at a dinner table. He feels a wave of relief that he wore a mask during his public outburst earlier because he definitely wants to avoid his old master at all costs. The group finishes their meal in high spirits, finally reunited after a decade of separation. It's the first moment of peace Kim has had since the world changed. But the quiet doesn't last long once he's finally alone. Kim lies flat on a small bed in a dark room. He quietly whispers status window to see what the system thinks of his current state. The holographic screen pops up, showing his physical stats are absolutely broken, with strength at A++ and stamina at S+. The notification saying he reached the limit of the tutorial is finally gone. He's officially a player in the real world now, but one detail is still bothering him. Kim stares up at the ceiling with a thoughtful expression. He's technically 24 again, and those 12 years of imprisonment have officially been wiped from his record. His only goal now is to live a life of total freedom until the day he dies. But as his eyes drift down to the bottom of the screen, he freezes. His skill slot is still a complete blank, making him wonder why that specific remnant of the tower is still haunting him. A finger taps the glowing hologram. Manhwa finally stares at the notification confirming his 12-year nightmare is over and the loop is officially removed. It's supposed to be a moment of total peace, but the system is already taunting him with dungeon bosses and the next level of testing. He's barely had a second to process being home before a loud knock echoes through the room. Honestly, he's been back for 5 minutes and the outside world is already trying to sink its teeth into him. An older guard delivers the news. He looks visibly worried while explaining that high-level scouts from the Ares Guild have arrived and they're refusing to take no for an answer. Manhwa doesn't even let the man finish the sentence before raising a hand to signal he's heard enough. He realizes that if he doesn't give them a hard, blunt rejection right now, these corporate vultures will just pester him for the rest of his life. He's done being a pawn, and he's ready to make that very clear. 2 men in suits wait downstairs. Manhwa strolls into the fancy waiting room looking completely out of place in his signature black tracksuit and rubber sandals. He takes a seat across from the intimidating duo and gets straight to the point, telling them he has absolutely no intention of joining their guild. The lead scout doesn't even flinch, simply holding out a business card and asking if he thinks it's wise to cross a group like Ares. It's a blatant threat meant to scare him, and when Manhwa responds with a confused look and a simple what, it's clear he's not the least bit intimidated. A suited man sits confidently. The Ares scouter leans back on the couch, smugly telling Manhwa that joining their guild is the only way he'll ever grow properly in this world. He's trying to sell this recruitment as a grand opportunity, but it's really just a way to put a leash on a legend. It's the kind of corporate arrogance that usually works on rookies, but Manhwa is far from a normal beginner. 2 men sit across a table. Manhwa stares him down with a bored expression, asking if the man really came all this way just to try and blackmail him into a contract. Behind them, the association official looks like his soul is leaving his body as he watches Manhwa casually provoke a giant. The scouter just tells him to take it easy, wondering if the legend is actually any good at making life-changing judgments. Manhwa wears a relaxed smile. He looks totally unfazed by the predatory smirk across from him, clearly finding the scouter's aggressive pitch more entertaining than actually intimidating. The conversation takes a sharp turn toward the value of dungeon entrance tickets, which have basically become the most expensive currency on Earth. If these tickets are the new gold, then whoever controls them owns the future of every hunter in the country. A group eats dinner together. Later, during a meal with his teammates, the mood shifts as they discuss how the Ares Guild is currently monopolizing 66% of all Korean dungeons. A girl with long, dark hair explains that they're using massive amounts of foreign capital to simply buy their way into total control. They're specifically targeting the newcomer and A-rank dungeons, making it impossible for independent players to even get a foot in the door. A young man stares with wide eyes. He points out that the Ares Guild is forcing a choice with absolutely no middle ground left. Suddenly, a massive shockwave ripples through the room as someone slams their fist down in a fit of rage. This isn't just a business meeting anymore, it's a blatant show of force to intimidate the newcomer. But honestly, does this guy really think a broken table is going to scare a legend like Manhwa Kim? A massive bald man looms over the group. He warns everyone that even in an association dorm, talking trash can have some pretty lethal consequences if the wrong person hears it. He steps directly into Manhwa's personal space to deliver a grim lesson in what happens to people who don't show respect. Manhwa just sits there in his tracksuit, looking like he's completely bored by the entire monologue. The tension is thick enough to cut, but the MC doesn't even blink at the threat. Bright disco lights flash over dancers. A quick glimpse behind the scenes shows the chaotic energy of the production team mixed with some fourth-wall breaking humor about the staff going crazy. Then, a giant armored bear appears, looking more like a mascot than a monster while characters beg for a Discord join. It's a bizarre tonal shift, but it highlights just how eccentric and unpredictable this world's elite players have become. The question is all this madness just a distraction from the real danger? Hands slam hard onto the wood. The bald scouter is officially done playing nice and wants to make sure Manhwa feels the total weight of the Ares Guild's shadow. Smoke and dust kick up from the impact, framing Manhwa's irritatingly calm and unimpressed expression. He's dealt with literal nightmares for 12 years in the tutorial. A little desk slapping is just white noise to him now. He's just waiting for a reason to actually pay attention. A sudden blur streaks across the frame. The bald man leans in close, his face a roadmap of scars and predatory intent as he drops the act. He asks Manhwa if he honestly thinks he has what it takes to defeat the monster they're hiding. This is the real hook the Ares Guild is using to try and reel him into their web. If Manhwa says no, he's admitting he's outclassed, but saying yes means he's officially starting a war with the biggest players in the country. A smug mouth curls into a smile. Manhwa doesn't even blink as he calls the Ares representatives literal garbage to their faces. The scouts' expressions twist from professional arrogance to pure, unadulterated rage in a split second. Honestly, calling out a high-tier guild like that is a death wish for anyone else, but Manhwa looks like he's just getting started. A hand grips a striped rubber slipper. He calmly motions for them to step closer, telling the two suited powerhouses to get hit so they can finally come to their senses. He is seriously threatening to take down elite scouters with nothing but his cheap footwear. It's the ultimate level of disrespect, and he's doing it with a completely straight face. teeth grit together in a violent snarl. The scouter's patience finally snaps, his jaw locking as he realizes this legend is just mocking their entire organization. He screams out that this guy is a jerk who needs to be put in his place once and for all. The tension in the room officially hits the breaking point, and it's about to get loud. Manhwa stands still against a dark background. The scouter lunges forward with a blood-curdling scream, fully intending to end this meeting with a body count. A mouth hangs wide open in a roar of fury as the first strike is thrown. But the real question is, can a corporate hunter actually touch a man who survived a hellish tutorial for 12 years? A bright flash of white light explodes. The room erupts into a blur of movement as the sound of a heavy impact echoes against the expensive walls. Someone lets out a choked, painful gasp as they're blindsided by a counterattack they never saw coming. It turns out, underestimating the man in the tracksuit is the last mistake most people ever make. A face contorts in absolute agony. Manhwa's counterattack doesn't just land, it hits with the concentrated force of a freight train, sending the arrogant Ares scouter flying through the air like a ragdoll. The impact triggers a massive explosion of debris against the reinforced walls, turning the high-end office into a total disaster zone in a split second. The scouter can't even process the movement, struggling to breathe while staring back with wide, trembling eyes that realize far too late he's completely out of his league. Thick dust settles around a pair of legs. The floor beneath them is completely pulverized and cracked, radiating a heavy, low-frequency vibration that makes the very atmosphere feel heavy and suffocating. Through the settling haze, Manhwa remains perfectly still, his signature tracksuit not even having a single wrinkle from the brutal exchange. He looks down at the terrified man and casually tells him to talk to me again, dude, essentially treating a top-tier guild recruiter like a bothersome pest he's done playing with for the day. Faint blue sparks flicker through the smoke. In a quiet observation room, the association official watches the playback on his monitor, rubbing his chin as he recalculates everything he thought he knew about this so-called returning player. He smiles to himself, acknowledging that Manhwa is a big frog who has officially outgrown the dungeon pond and is now ready to wreck the entire social order. Looking down at the rejected guild documents resting on the coffee table, it's painfully obvious that trying to control this man was everyone's first and most dangerous mistake. A muscular chest flexes under purple light. The Ares Guild is fully convinced that their sheer history and accumulated strength are enough to make any sane man crumble. They really believe that once Manhwa feels the weight of their massive influence, he'll have no choice but to kneel down and beg for a spot on their roster. It's that classic elite mindset where they think money and status are the ultimate weapons. They're practically cackling at the prospect of breaking him, completely unaware that their target has already survived things that would make their entire guild cry for mercy. Thick stone blocks lie completely shattered. We're looking at a massive crater that used to be a high-end testing facility, and the examiner is having a total mental breakdown. He keeps muttering to himself about how this shouldn't be physically possible, especially since Manhwa doesn't have a single drop of magic in his system. It's a terrifying reality check for the association because their established rules of physics just got thrown out the window. If this is what the guy does while he's bored and testing the waters, they definitely aren't ready to see what happens when he actually gets serious. Black and white striped slides walk forward. Manhwa casually wanders over like he's just looking for a local convenience store, throwing out a lazy greeting. Poor David, the examiner, looks like his soul is about to leave his body as he cowers against the smoking wreckage of the room. Seeing a man in cheap sandals walk through that kind of absolute destruction is way scarier than facing an armored warrior. The massive gap between his relaxed attitude and the sheer violence he just unleashed is exactly why the world is realizing they're in way over their heads. The examiner lets out a pathetic shriek while cowering against the wall. He's completely losing his mind over the destruction, but Manhwa just looks at him like he's an absolute idiot for overreacting. A sudden flash of blue energy fills the room, signaling that the chaotic evaluation is finally over. Honestly, if the association can't handle a little property damage, they probably shouldn't be testing a man who survived a 12-year hellscape. The city lights glow under a quiet night sky as the scene shifts away from the rubble. Manhwa is already back at the home base, casual as ever despite the absolute mess he left behind. Sihian asks if he really had to go and crush the guy, but Manhwa just shrugs it off. He claims the official started the fight first, which is technically true, even if the retaliation was a bit excessive. Sihian walks across the modern living room while Manhwa sits on the sofa, happily munching on strawberries. The younger leader is visibly stressed, warning his young that the Ares Guild isn't known for being graceful losers. Manhwa just keeps chewing, wondering aloud what's so terrible about people holding a grudge. He treats a massive political threat like a minor inconvenience, which is exactly why Sihian is losing sleep over his safety. Sihian's reddish-brown eyes narrow as he explains the reality of buzzing within the hunter world. He warns that instead of a fair fight, the guild will soundlessly sabotage and harass him whenever he enters a maze. Manhwa stops mid-bite, looking more puzzled by the term than the actual threat of being hunted. It's a dangerous game of cat and mouse, but everyone seems to be forgetting that Manhwa isn't the mouse in this equation. Sihian rubs his temples in frustration. Manhwa casually points out that without any witnesses inside the mazes, powerful guilds can basically do whatever they want to independent hunters like him. It's a brutal, savage reality that would terrify most people, but Hyanwo just keeps chewing his food like he's watching a really boring documentary. Sihyun realizes his friend is as stubborn as he is powerful, so he finally asks if Hyanwo would just consider joining his own guild to avoid the political target on his back. Hyanwo reclines with a lazy smirk. He shuts the idea down immediately, reminding Sihyun that he's already declared his intent to live a totally comfortable and stress-free life from here on out. Sihyun doesn't buy the lazy act for a second and bluntly asks what kind of massive trouble his senior is actually planning to cause this time. The playful energy in the room completely evaporates the second Hyanwo drops his casual mask and asks if he's ever heard of a mysterious place called the Institute of Aduran. A blue status window flickers open. The interface displays the old-school stats and system logs from the very first day Hyanwo was trapped inside the tutorial tower. While the world sees a guy in a tracksuit who just wants to nap, Hyanwo is actually harboring over a decade of deep, burning resentment. He didn't just crawl out of that hell to retire quietly, he's obsessed with finding the secret behind the tower and the culprit who put him there. The 12-year mystery is finally starting to unravel, and Hyanwo is ready to burn everything down to get the answers he's owed. Sihyun stares with a worried expression. He asks Hyanwo why he's suddenly fixated on a specific location after being out for such a short time. Hyanwo doesn't even blink, coldly admitting he wants to find the people who trapped him and make them suffer the exact same hell. It's a dark shift in tone, but after 12 years of torture, his thirst for blood is the only thing keeping him going. A man collapses amidst thick smoke. The surrounding crowd is losing their minds, screaming for an ambulance as the area turns into a complete crime scene. Meanwhile, Hyanwo just stands there in his signature tracksuit, looking entirely unbothered by the chaos. He's the eye of the storm, looking like he just finished a light jog instead of a brutal encounter, proving the advanced player tag isn't just for show. Dark hallways lead into an empty room. Sihyun mentions a C-rank dungeon in Weijongbu that's usually the go-to spot for training new recruits. It seems like the perfect place for Hyanwo to lay low and test his current limits without drawing too much heat. But in this world, nothing is ever as simple as walking through a front door, especially for a guy who has a massive target on his back. Sihyun explains the guild's restriction. He drops the bomb that Hyanwo probably can't even step foot inside that dungeon. The Ares Guild is straight up abusing their power by claiming exclusive rights over the gates, and they've even locked down a place called Aduran. Hyanwo is absolutely floored by the level of corruption, yelling about how the government is failing to enforce antitrust laws against these greedy organizations. Sihyun leans forward as he breaks down the grim reality of the association's lack of power. He explains that because the tutorial tower is the only gate to becoming a hunter, the guilds have essentially become the law. If someone disappears inside a dungeon, the police aren't coming to the rescue, they'll just label it an unfortunate accident and move on. It's a total mess because Ares isn't just a group of fighters, they're a blue-chip company paying massive taxes, making them practically untouchable by the state. Hyanwo stands up from the couch, his casual attitude finally being replaced by something a bit more dangerous. He brushes off the warnings about legal red tape, thinking that if the front door is locked, he'll just have to find a way to enter the gate secretly. He flashes a predatory smirk that screams trouble, deciding right then to move on to a much more aggressive method. He plans to take the bull by the horns, and by the look in his eyes, he's definitely not planning on being the one who gets gored. Sihyun watches him with a look of genuine dread, a cold sweat breaking out as he realizes the magnitude of the situation. He warns Hyanwo that this move will create a permanent, hostile relationship with the Ares power players that can't be undone. We get a sharp close-up of Hyanwo's gaze as he ignores the logic, and the scene shifts to a massive, imposing skyscraper piercing the clouds. The military government's checks are tighter than anyone expected, and as the realization hits, it's already far too late to turn back now. High-ranking officials sit in a dark, blue-lit boardroom. They're debating the timeline for their next major operation, estimating at least 5 months to get everything in order. The leader doesn't seem stressed by the delay, especially with Russia and Japan trailing even further behind. He lets out a smug grin, confident that their dominance is secure for now. It's a calculated, corporate approach to power that feels more like a war room than a guild hall. But while they're focused on the global stage, a much bigger threat is already walking the streets. A man in a sharp suit stands before a glowing world map. He tells his team that taking their time is fine, as long as they stay one step ahead of everyone else. To him, survival in a dungeon isn't about defeating the boss, it's about being faster than the competition trying to steal your loot. He points a finger at the screen, demanding his subordinates keep a sharp eye on their current interests. They think they've got everything under control, but they're about to learn that some players don't follow the rules. A subordinate enters the office and hands a folder to the branch manager. The manager looks down, his expression shifting from boredom to pure shock as he scans the contents. He stares at the screen, asking what the hell he's even looking at. The files contain combat footage and data charts of Hyanwo Kim, and the numbers are absolutely off the charts. Seeing the poisonous apple in action for the first time is a wake-up call they never expected. The Ares Guild wanted to recruit him, but now they're realizing they might have just invited a monster into their backyard. A white speech bubble floats in space. The association's analysts used a high-end trial machine to measure Hyunwoo Kim's power, and the data is frankly terrifying. Even factoring in a massive margin of error, his stats remain consistently in the highest rank possible. The official flips through the report with a grim expression, finally forced to realize their previous estimates weren't even close to the truth. A man in a suit smiles thinly. He brings up how manager Byongo Kim already struck out trying to recruit him, which only makes the guild leadership even more desperate. They stare at Hyunwoo's ID photo, seeing a man who looks more like a bored civilian than a god-tier hunter. It's this massive disconnect between his lazy appearance and his raw power that's throwing everyone off. Blue flames burst from a giant beast. The board members realize that landing a guy like this would mean absolute dominance and infinite profit for the Ares Guild. A finger taps rhythmically against the desk while they plot their next move to secure a contract. They're looking at him as the ultimate prize to be claimed, completely unaware that they are actually hunting a predator. Dark eyes narrow with a sudden realization. One executive starts to worry that Hyunwoo won't be satisfied being a subordinate and could easily threaten his own position. The association official finally points a finger, dropping the most important warning of all. He calls Hyunwoo a poisonous apple. He looks delicious and easy to handle, but the second you try to take a bite, he's the one who's going to snap. Men sit in a high-rise office. Manager Byongo Kim orders his team to handle the Hyunwoo problem through the executive department. Suddenly, a frantic subordinate sprints down the hall, screaming for the boss. A panicked employee reports to manager Kim. He drops the news that something happened at the Institute of Aduran, leaving the manager speechless. The focus shifts to Kiambosan Mountain, where the next conflict awaits. Misty peaks loom over the entrance. A rookie archer pleads for entry, but the Ares Guild has established a total blockade at the Aduran dungeon. These guys are basically corporate thugs shaking down independent hunters. The archer looks up with desperation. She needs a place to hunt, but the sleazy gatekeeper just mocks her lack of money. He suggests she head to a dangerous free zone, essentially telling her to go die. The smug gatekeeper leans in close. He demands her phone number to grant entry, using his authority for a sleazy power trip. A striped sandal steps forward suddenly. Hyunwoo arrives in his signature tracksuit, looking completely bored. This blockade just met its worst nightmare. Black track pants and striped sandals stand firm. The gatekeeper yells at Hyunwoo Kim to go find a toilet in the woods. Hyunwoo isn't lost, though. He's here for the dungeon raid. A red-faced guard screams about monsters. He thinks this is a joke, but Hyunwoo's calm stare shifts the vibe instantly. He knows the risks. This loudmouth is way out of his league. A girl pleads with the guard. The rookie hunter tries to explain her business, but the gatekeeper just calls her an idiot. He's clearly enjoying this power trip. A boot hits a monster's chest. Hyunwoo Kim leaves the Ares staff in total despair after his ruthless display. He's a nightmare for the guild. Hyunwoo walks toward the glowing portal. He shoves past the guards and enters the dungeon. He's officially made a mockery of the guild's authority. Now, the Ares team is left in total despair.